All right. Hello, everyone. This is Shannon Port, and I am coming to you today on January 7th with the Goddess Report. This is our Divine Feminine Energy Update for the planet for the month of January 2021. And we're doing this on January 7th. And so there's obviously so much happening on the planet right now. And I'm just checking to see if anyone has got the notification. I'm sure it's quite busy on the platforms right now, but I wanted to go live. I hadn't planned to do this as a live stream, but because there's so much happening right now, it's just kind of shown to come on live and talk today with the information that's coming in through this stream. So again, we're meeting every month at the beginning of the month, working with the Divine Feminine Wisdom and looking at the Divine Feminine energy on the planet, which has to do with our consciousness and how our consciousness is a container for receiving the impulses of the archetypal coding that affects us and causes us to create reality. So I'm going to talk to some of the things that are happening in the world right now today, for sure. So what we'll do is I'll do the download. I will go through what the information that was received just about an hour ago. Then I also want to give 3 tools to navigate the energies of 2021 because it's nice to see some people are on it because the year 2021 is a much different energy than the year 2020. And so that is why I waited until the 7th to do the Goddess Report for January, because once we crossed over, a lot changed. And so I'll tell you what I've experienced at that time, and then I'll go into the report. So immediately we had the activation on solstice, where we had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, and a lot of energy was brought in. As we got closer to the changing of the year and the archetypal energy that governs our consciousness, I felt the anticipation, and it was truly, truly embraced to walk through that portal and to come into the new energy, because 2020 was very burdensome, and it was like carrying a heavy, heavy load for a lot of us. And we were excited to embrace the new, and that could be felt. It was palpable. I know I stayed up almost all night on New Year's Eve this year because I could feel the energy and the energy of the human consciousness collectively, just really looking forward to some movement. So this is what I'll say before I go into the Goddess Report. So the year 2020 was ruled by the number 4 and the planetary archetype Uranus. So Uranus as an archetype is it's a dynamic energy that is also a mind energy. Uranus governs the sign Aquarius, but it goes slow and then it erupts. It goes slow, it contracts, and then it erupts. It has spurts of movement and downloads and receiving new paradigms that come very fast. But then there's a contraction and a slowdown period. For 2021, the archetypal energy is governed by the number 5. And this number is associated and connected, corresponds to the energy of Mercury. And we're going to be going into all the correspondences around that. This is a very different energy, and it's very, very taxing on the mind. Mercury governs our mind. And so that's why I want to give some tools to navigate this energy, because we're off to a very serious start. And I think I'll just go into the report because that's going to open up the conversation in the platform. So feel free to say hi in the chat. It's nice to see you, Amy and Chelsea. And I would love to hear where you're tuning in from and just how you're doing. In fact, we did so many videos in December 2020. I would love to hear how those activations affected you going into the new year. I'm really, really excited to hear from some of you. So this is the Goddess Report for January 2021. I'm here with a Divine Feminine Energy update for the planetary awakening and human consciousness. At the December solstice, on December 21st, we activated a new cosmic wave of energy in our planetary field. and many of you could feel that. It was a time of a lot of joy and anticipation of entering this new age. And we talked a lot about that in past videos, and even the very last couple I did, if you would like more information on that. This energy was to move us in the direction of the new archetypal form code in creation. And so it was bringing in the blueprint and the archetypal coding, the energetic coding for our consciousness moving forward into this next age that we're crossing into. As a result of the activation that took place at the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, right at 0 degrees, humanity is now ready to enter into a preliminary spiritual work to truly awaken the next era of life on Earth. So this is preliminary spiritual work. We're going to be in this era for a very long time. And what's happening is that we're going to go through some spiritual work to upgrade. And so with Saturn in Aquarius for the next couple of years, and Jupiter as well, there's going to be some work. And this year is going to be all about that work. And it's going to be serious, and it's going to come with a little bit of suffering as we move into this new archetype, because we truly, truly have to shift into a new way of creating. This year, we're being initiated into a much greater responsibility, and this is the main crux of what we're talking about, in how we use our mind to create reality and to connect with other human beings via our words, our actions, and our emotions. This may sound so simple, but this is very big, because we talk a lot about these things, but to actually change from our old ways and begin to embody the new ways goes way outside of what we see happening in the world right now. The world right now is caught in the forces. It's being yanked around. It's like it's on a leash and it's being yanked around by the forces that govern the zodiac. Everything is cosmic force, and it works through the container of our consciousness. So we will go into more, I wrote more about this, how we use our feminine creative principle of the heart. So I'm going to read that last line again. This year, we are being initiated into a much greater responsibility in how we use our mind to create our reality via our words, our actions, and our emotions. These are great powers, and it's time for us to take it seriously and really own what we have. None of us is cut off completely from this power, and this is the era of discovering it and upgrading the way we connect with our own inner power. This is our divine feminine energy power. It's the creative principle of our heart. If you think of us as consciousness, our consciousness is not the divine impulse. The divine impulse comes through the archetypal energy that exists through the laws of nature in the cosmic force. How we receive it is determined by how we use our own consciousness to activate our subconsciousness and use our feminine energy, our emotions, our power to love each other, our power to speak the words. And right now, humanity is learning that on all these platforms we look to for our information, there needs to be an upgrade. In our media platforms, in our politics, in everything, we need to change the way we speak to one another. And we need to speak to each other with, first of all, authentic energy that's void of wanting fame or platform or wanting to manipulate through old patriarchal energies that are all about money. This is about understanding how to see each other as divine beings, even if we disagree with each other, but to recognize the divinity in humanity. Then, and only then, do we get access to the powers of the divine feminine that are going to take us to another level. They're going to just blast us into a new world. We have the opportunity to use those now, even in the face of all this change. And I'm excited to talk about some of the things that are happening. So our mind is the magical commander. Think of it as the magician of our consciousness. And our consciousness is the birther and the molder of our reality and matter. Our consciousness is the feminine force that shapes matter and creates what we see. So we're all doing that. The masculine part of our being tells it what to create. So you imagine we have this masculine that says, hey, this is what I want you to create. It sends it the message, and then it creates it. Our masculine consciousness is governed by how we perceive the world about us, how we feel, how we react to it. And that is based on our patterns and what we carry inside. So we already have this memory bank of patterns that were born. Each one of us has our own. And so what it does is our consciousness tells that memory bank what to create. And so instead of creating from a clean slate, we have blocks inside us that keep us stuck in an old pattern. And so we're seeing that collectively right now. So our job is to embrace those parts of us, love them through our relationships, through our connections with other people, see where we need to let them go and surrender them, and to walk through the fire so that we can create with our real power. And birth reality. We are all birthers of reality. All right. All of the events taking place in our world at this time are being created in a unique way by every single individual. So no two people are even seeing the world the same right now. They are also being molded by the various groups and collective movements who join in the name of a shared belief system or ideology. So whenever we connect to a political ideology or any kind of movement, even a spiritual movement, any kind of movement, an identity movement, we're saying, okay, I'm going to give some of my creative force to this movement and help give it momentum so that it can accomplish whatever that collective is trying to accomplish. So a lot of times we're magnetized to movements based on our wounds. And this is it's just part of reality. I'm seeking healing. I want to feel good. I want to connect to my tribe. So when I hear people saying things that kind of feel good to me, I'm going to start to get closer and closer. And as I contract with them and give my soul energy to that group and say, okay, I'm going to stick with you. I'm then part of the group consciousness and the group think for that group. So this is a very big thing to understand in our world right now, because we have all these groups, and the goddess had something to say about that. So they're also being molded by these various groups and system in the name of shared belief systems. So the shadow forces count on these groups being at odds with each other so that they can create discord of mind and heart in human consciousness. The goal of the dark force is to use the mind, which is Mercury, the number 5, and make it a tool of divisiveness. The mind is a polar instrument. It's an instrument of polarity and duality. And in order for the darker force, the ego and the negative force to work, it has to get us operating in duality. And so the goal of this is to have all these different groups warring with each other. We see it played out in absolutely everything. So that even if each group is individually correct in their alignment and has a logistic ideological archetype that they're trying to birth, as long as they're fighting with another group and getting involved in that web of discord, the accomplishments are distorted and they're on the wheel. They never ever get off the wheel. They go up, they have success, and then they fall down, and then they go up, and then they fall down. This is the zodiac. This is the wheel of death and rebirth that we're all on. So I'm going to just take a breath, look down, digest that a little bit, and say hi to all of you. It's so nice to see you. Oh, yay. So nice to see you. So nice to see you. Happy New Year to all of you. Wow. Happy New Year. I forgot to say that. And huge blessings to everybody here and on the planet right now. So The lower mind is a lunar instrument of duality. It has a light side and a dark side, just like the moon. With every belief or feeling, this is big, the opposite has equal power within the container. Now, this is a huge concept to understand because it's true. In our dual instrument, every time we have a feeling, we also have the opposite feeling. That's the nature of the lunar force. As of right now, and that's why I talk a lot about the solar feminine, the feminine creative consciousness is in duality. So there's a shadow side that we don't see. And in that shadow exists the opposite of what we want. So in this world, we create what we want, but then right behind it, we also create what we don't want. And we always feel like we're being chased by our own tail. We can't seem to get away from it. This is an era of healing that and activating the 5 on the higher level. So we see this most profoundly in our relationships when we both love someone and secretly, internally fear them, judge them, and even worse, hate them or undermine them at the very same time. So I want you to think about a love relationship or a friendship or something you have right now. Just think about the human mind. Think about, you can find it within your own consciousness, because when you can see it, it all starts to make sense. Think about how we truly love people. We have our friendships, we have our family, we have our partners. But how can we love someone but have negative thoughts about them at the same time? But it's very common. And the fact is that the more clairvoyant and the more empathic and the more we awaken, we know what each other are thinking, and we can actually see the duality, and we can see it in ourselves. But how can you love someone and not love them at the same time? We do it all the time. How can we, I'm just going to make sure I'm still live because something popped up. It looks like I am. If for any reason, yeah, okay. All right. I see it's still ticking. That is something to understand and catch yourself with it, and don't judge yourself for it, but catch yourself having negative thoughts about someone you really love, because we justify them. We're like, well, I really love them, but we have suspicion and fear and judgment of their dark side and their shadow. We all have a shadow. We all have a shadow, and we project our shadow onto those we love. And we attract those people who will be the mirror of our shadow. So we get to see exactly what we don't want to see in ourselves. This is psychology, but it's very profound right now, because we're going to apply it to what's happening in the world. It's time to step into a new way. We can understand all of that is very real. But we also, how can I heal myself of that burden? Because it's painful. It feels good in the moment to judge someone else or to blame someone else or to be like, yeah, that's the bad guy. They're the culprit. But what happens is it comes right back, and it manifests in our life as pain. And we're meant to have it because it teaches us, but we have to grab the lesson with it. If we grab the lesson, it's worthwhile. And then we can forgive it. We're like, okay, I'm judging all of this, and I feel like the world is against me for this reason, but the goal is to get through. 5 is the number of the pentagram, and the pentagram, by its tip up faces, represents that tip balancing the forces. We then, when our tip and our ether is on, we begin to neutralize the negative effect of polarity, and we begin to get that energy back. We no longer have to go through this cycle of joy, pain, love, suffering, love, judgment, love, abandonment, love, betrayal. We bounce back and forth. We get to walk with continuity, balancing. We still have to transmute. We have to balance the forces, but we get to reap the fruit, the rewards, a little bit at a time, and we get to see it's a worthwhile path. because then we get to stand, and it doesn't mean it's always perfect, but we get to see the dance that's taking place in reality, and we get to magnetize people to ourselves to help people get on board this train, because this train is only going up. This train is not about denial, and it's not about, or this rocket, it's not about denial of what's wrong, because we can actually speak to what's wrong much more clearly when we're balancing the forces. I'm going to get back to what she said because then we're going to talk about what's happening on the planet. So the shadow forces want discord. They want it. And it's hard. It's hard not to be in that discord because there's a force inside us so pulled to it. It's painful to pull away from it because we feel like, oh, but I need to be in it. It's a conflict. It's an inner conflict. If any of you are really on the spiritual path, you have to grapple with it. Should I do this or should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? And we have to use a sort of discernment, make a decision, and then learn from it. But we have to keep going and keep leveling up. We have no choice, especially this year, 2021, no choice. If the energies are coming fast and furious, they are not going to let up. Whereas 2020 was a little bit more of this energy of it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. When it's on, it's really painful. When it's off, it's really slow moving, and we're in lockdown and pandemic and quarantine, and we have no movement. And then all of a sudden, boom, we have big movement. And so, but this year, it's going to be taxing on our mind consistently. So we have to start to balance, because there's going to be people who are really, it's really going to be about the nervous system, and people being able to manage and not go crazy, not go insane. Because if we don't manage our own mind, it's going to get taken for a ride really, really, really intensely. So we talked about the light and dark side and everything having a polarity. So we talked about judging the ones we love the most. And so I asked you to look at that and find a place where you do it. This is what we're clearing in 2021. So I want to take a moment and just stop and kind of tune in for a second, because I want to come into the energy. We did a lot of meditating in December. How can we do that? And so just come into your heart for a moment and surrender. And if you can, just be grateful for your life. Just be grateful for this life you have. It's like if you're on the planet right now, you've got a reason to be here. There's a reason to live, and there's a reason to connect and to love each other and to connect with the people you love, and to say, you know what, let's be on the same side. It's just so much better that way. And let love carry it. Let love bring us into clarity, into a more powerful vision of reality, and into our purpose, our divine mission, into our soul's work, and into knowing we can ride this time into a much better place for the human race. So just taking a deep breath in. The breath, let's just talk about the first tool we have is our breath. Because 5 is Mercury. Mercury on a mystical level also is connected to the breath. And it's the breath that governs the mind. So you have to understand how you're breathing. At any time, your breath is your best friend. You can just stop when those thoughts speed up, or when you start to speed up, or you feel like you're too much in the grind, you're being carried away. Just take a moment. Pull back, honor your sovereignty. We all know that that's all we have to do is just take a moment, because your breath is also going to connect to your heart, and it's going to slow you down. And when we slow down, we can hear the inner voice again. The number 5 is connected to the Hierophant, which is connected to Taurus, which is connected to hearing, spirit on the inside. If you're only ruled by an outer voice, it will be very difficult in this time to come, because there's a lot of competing voices and a lot of talking heads. It's all drama and sensation. There's some real things too. There's a lot of real reporting too, and there's good people everywhere. So this isn't to say that everything's dark and everything's bad. There's all these things happening. People are at war with each other, and there's very real things that we need to look at. But they're talking to hear themselves speak and not really listening and knowing that there's a greater perception. It's not just black or white. There's another way to see the world, and 5 represents perception. When we perceive differently, we hear the truth from within. It will you'll know you're in alignment with that because you'll act differently. Anytime we're acting out of fear or judgment or to get back or to take down somebody else, we're not coming from that place. It's not possible. When we're coming from that place, we'll be able to build and we'll be able to create and magnetize and start to get momentum for the positive timelines that we're creating right now. So breath is your best friend this year. It's your best friend. It's quite simple. There's all kinds of fancy breaths you can work with. But breath will slow you down, and you'll see that the whole field that we live in is one big breath. Breath carries the logos. It carries the light of the sun. It carries prana. It carries ruach. It carries the Holy Spirit. So when we breathe in, we're breathing in spirit. The inhale and the exhale is the God force. We breathe in and we exhale. And there's some really beautiful breaths where you can breathe in, hold for the equal amount of time, and then exhale. I'll talk about that in the coming videos. But first get acquainted with immediately going to your breath. So breath activates the ether. It activates the cosmic ether, and we have to learn how to breathe the cosmic ether. Right now, when we breathe the lower atmosphere, we're breathing the lower elemental forces, and the breath then tells our mind what to think, tells our heart what to feel, and tells our consciousness, our subconsciousness, what to create. They're all linked together, and it starts with breath. It tells us what to feel, what to think, and it tells our nervous system how to react. And our nervous system governs our whole consciousness, and it's a threefold system. So, okay. All right, so I just talked about ether, that you were going to activate the energetic codes of the higher ether. This archetype is connected to the planetary of Mercury, the 5 in the pentagram. The number 5 is the number 5 is the number of the fall. So you hear all kinds of things in mythology about the fall of human consciousness. That's 5. This year, 2021, numerologically, is a 5. We could repeat the fall. We're going to relive the fall, and we're going to relive the regeneration. You can choose the path of the fall or the path of the regeneration. That's what a lot of people are talking about, bifurcation. That's all that means. You're either going to be falling constantly or regenerating. And we'll all probably be somewhere in the middle trying to keep getting into the regeneration. But breath is the greatest power we have for this. We fell through the 5 senses, which are represented by Taurus, and Uranus is in Taurus for about 6 more years. And the misuse of the word, our words. Just going to see what we want to say about that. The whole outer world is based on the word. And what's happened, I'm going to take a break from this. What's happened is that look at how we use language and how we feel so free to talk to each other in such an awful way. It's become the norm. It's always been present, but now with social media, it's amplified. It's everywhere. And sometimes it feels good I've been reading comments before where I was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you realize, because comments, you can see there's so much humor in the word, and that's connected to it as well. But you see human consciousness just blurting things out. And it is okay to see the humor in things, but make sure it doesn't hook into you and grab you and take you into anger and fear and aggression and attack, because that is the divine error and the way we fell. If you can look at things that are kind of low vibration and laugh and say, okay, that's human. That's human, but I'm not going to go that path, but I can see the humor. The devil works by laughter. It laughs it off and then says, okay, back to work. And because if we don't use humor and we're too sincere, we get too heavy about it, then we're going to get hooked into it. So humor is also very good in these times. So the 5 senses and the misuse of the word, or the misuse of our thought power, which is the same thing. What I'm thinking is my word, and it's creating my reality. Our vibrational use of the mind becomes permanently stuck in duality, the lunar principle. I'm permanently stuck in the right left, and that's what we see in the politics. we've talked a lot about that, and even looking at the tree of life and all forms of polarity consciousness. We can heal this deception that exists. It's our original sin. That's what we're looking at in our consciousness by correcting the divine error of judgment and projection of what we project, what is hidden in our own subconscious, and what we fear the most, we often project, and then we get to see it. And this is a time where we're also going to be seeing that reality is not as dense as you think it is. In fact, it's almost like watching theater. This is not to make light of it, but no, you can feel it. It's holographic, and when you rethink it, the forces regather in a different way, and that you create a different hologram. More can be said on that, and we will be going into it more. I want to breeze through this and then get to a couple more things. So, and okay, talking about the cosmic sacred fire. Okay, we can alchemize it. Okay, we project what we fear the most. So we must see it within ourselves. That's what claiming our shadow is about, and owning our dark. It's not about acting with dark behavior and saying this is okay, I'm the dark feminine. Not at all. It's about seeing our shadow and nurturing it and understand that that's power that's been contracted and densified. We want to free that power up so we can use it positively. You want money, you want the joy of life, you want healthy relationships, free some of that trapped energy and begin to create it. And we're magnetism. We magnetize it. We alchemize it with divine love. Divine love is the solvent. It's the great power of the goddess. When we're talking about divine feminine energy, we're slowly integrating the divine love. I can promise you it's not boring. It's not a one note kind of thing. It's the whole expanse of creation. It's the cosmic goddess, and it's the galactic portal of the highest energy, but it's real. It's not just something we can talk about. We have to, and it's painful to get to the place of embodying it, because we have to clear our stuff. We just have to. And for those of you who are on the accelerated path right now, you're clearing a lot right now. I need to take a break of my word. I'm going to look down and say hi and see how everyone is. And, it's so nice to see you. Okay. Just going to say, oh, beautiful. Yeah. Oh, the duality is coming on strong. It's fighting. It's really fighting. It's trying to get power from human souls. So I know we have to jump to what's happening on the planet. Yes. Yes. All of it. Beautiful. Yes. The matrix is the womb. All of it. Yes. It's the great creator. So let me just breeze through this. I don't know if I want to go. There's a little bit more. All right. So we have to step it. That is the cosmic sacred fire of the goddess. We have to let it purify us. We know when it touches us, it activates the forces within us. And that's when our world feels like it's falling down. We go through dark nights. But I know so many of you that come here, you just keep going. Reach for love. Reach for the stars. Create what is beautiful in your life. Don't give up. Everyone's playing their role. Everyone's being, a lot of the figures out there are being used by the zodiac, and they're just being a container for force. Underneath all of it, there's divinity. There's such divinity. A lot of the movements out there demonize people who really, the danger of the movements, even the truth, the so-called truth ones. I see so much demonizing of people that is just wrong. And I see it we all do it. I've done it. We all do it. We all want to find the culprit. So we project. There's very legitimate, dark, shadowy things that happen in our world, and definitely that are ruling, meaning because the lower human consciousness is governed by the shadow forces. It's selfish, and it's carnal, and it wants power, and it wants greed, and it fights for what is right, but it's still connected to this desire to reap the benefits of the lower forces without yet connecting to the higher. So all these people are containers that are, you can see them. If when you look at zodiac charts, you can see everyone's just playing their part. In this age, we're going to let go of those parts and come into the new archetype. We're going to be, everyone's got to slowly step off that track and get on this track, the age of Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius is going to help that to happen. And so we have to have patience with each other. We have to move with our heart, you know, do what we're meant to do. We've all made mistakes. Every nation, every people, every race, every sex, every religion has sinned, is contained. There's no one that's free of that. And by sinned, I mean holds the original fall. So it's okay to point things out, but we have to be compassionate with people, because otherwise our energy will get sucked away. You get that false high of I'm out to get everybody, and then you crash. It's like using the wrong substances to feel good. It might feel good for a while, and then there's the backlash. This is a steady walk into the light. You don't want to blast forward, because then there's a backlash to that too. Initiation is slow and steady. Slow and steady. Upgrade, clear, transmute, take a few steps. Upgrade, clear, transmute, take a few steps forward. And be humble, because humility is actually the greatest pride. It's the greatest power we can have. So love is the only power that can right the past wrong, but love without wisdom can be equally harmful. This is for all us empaths, so we need to know this. Love without wisdom can be equally harmful, because it carries the lower raging energies of the feminine wound, and it seeks to destroy with a vengeance its own projected pain into the outer world. It carries the insanity of the perpetual blame, and it's always seeking to find the devil in the outer world. This was right from the goddess. That was the Goddess Report download. And I'm just reading it for the first time and really seeing what that means. That's the wounded feminine energy is what we're healing right now, because it's the harshest reality we have. We need to give it a voice, but in order for it to not wreak havoc in our health, in our body, in our own environment, we have to see it and keep nurturing it into the regeneration of power, so that we can put that aside and do the real work. No more blame, and see the part we've all played. We're all part of this tapestry. We're all one consciousness, and that's the next tool. Let's step into the next tool. Tool number 2, unity. So we have to understand what unity really means. So we understand that there's really one field of consciousness. It can be a lonely thought when you first start to understand it, because you understand that everything you're seeing is part of yourself. But I'm going to have you do it. Just take a moment, and it doesn't mean you deny what you see, but what is the word that comes to mind for you when you think of unity? I'm just curious. I'm going to take a peek down, because we hear the word unity consciousness all the time, but what that means is understanding that energetically we're all connected. I can't have any thoughts without it showing up in my reality on some level, because everything is responding to me, and I am responding to everything. It's me and the world. And then when I come into harmony with friendship or relationship, that's the beauty of a real divine love relationship, is that you begin to harmonize and you know each other as one. It doesn't mean you don't have your different life or your different likes or your different arguments now and then, but you're moving in unity. And that's the beauty of a real relationship, because you begin to sense and do the balancing work that transcends the lower addictions and desires and carnal appetites that only want to see things that feed that. We start to go into pure love. You can have it with a pet. You can have it with your work. You can have it with healing in your family, even a group of friends. But you start to feel, and you do not judge other people. You come together in the spirit of awakening. So it's not about forming a group so you can project the group pain. It's about forming a group so you can understand what it is to balance that power of the cosmic goddess, and then create the new reality, because then she will give you more power to work with. We're all getting more power, to the point where if you say it, the elements are going to bow. And that's another video. All right. So let me just finish up with this, and we'll take a quick peek. That raging energy was what we're healing, and that energy is caught and captured and harnessed. It's very well known. Some of the outer world forces know that energy is really easy to harness and gather. And since the beginning of time, I'll say this about the world. So, since the beginning of time, it was known that if you find a group and you capitalize on their wound and magnetize them to each other, so they're talking about it and talking about it and talking about it, you build like an egregore. It's a group ball of energy that can be used and steered. And so we talk about that. I've talked about this in the solar feminine activation videos. It's like a group think um, entity, and the one who's aware of it can steer it. And so since the beginning of time, I told you about. I've been doing a lot of reading about Rome and the fall of Rome, and that these forces of the church and the patriarchal power and this contracted energy that was needed because the other energy, the pendulum was swinging and people were looking for the inner plane. And this was about denying the outer world, denying anything feminine in the outer world. I mean, women were demonized, art was demonized, everything was the devil, philosophy was demonized. Beauty in the world was demonized. Everything was torn down in the name of God, and with a vengeance. I mean, human flesh was torn apart without blinking an eye. That's the meaning of evil. And so these forces, going back to what we're talking about, are the forces that we are transcending right now and harmonizing. They have to talk to each other because they both, the inner plane and the spirit, is as valuable as the creative energy in the outer world, art and beauty and love and sexuality and form. And we don't have to think that everything that's on that side is the devil or is satanic. This is what I wanted to say. That's what has happened, is that we've taken truth, which there are dark, shadowy forces working very powerfully, but we've projected it onto masses of groups of people in its wrongful blame and accusation. I hear people with huge spiritual platforms, huge, saying things that I'm just gasping, that are attacking people, that are not quite seeing the whole picture, but making it okay to just put all these people in a category that they're all evil. And I know that could go for both sides, but I'm talking a lot about right now the sort of the entertainment, some of the popular culture people who, if you look closely and listen, that's the energy of 5 in the Aerophant, and hear with your heart, you would not come to these conclusions. We are all under shadow contracts. We are all in some way being used. We've all been used. We're all bowing to. We just pick the agenda that we're against and say that that's the demon. As far as sexuality, the misuse of sexuality, and the more predatory types of things that happen, that's across the board. It's across the board, and not only is it with the higher ups, it's with all the human race has to heal this. We only see it in certain groups so profoundly because it's those kinds of things that we're learning from it. We have to grow and wake up. A lot of people are just under full-blown control of the mind, and they are being used and gratifying lower senses about power, wounds. In some is very intentional, but it can only happen because the whole collective human race is at a frequency level that makes it possible. As we raise our vibration in the way we're talking about it, and I know we're going into a lot of things today, but it will slowly have to shift away. Trying to attack it is like chasing our tail, because we contain part of it, and real justice will happen through the light. And some of these movements also use language that's really, really dark and really bad, or they're really trying to like make fun of each other in a way that's really calls in dark entities. And I didn't even plan to go into this today, but if you could see the larva that comes in, even with good spiritual people, when you attach to certain things, you start to carry this like energy that will suck everything out of your heart and implant um, projections of darkness onto everyone. And you'll think that the whole world is bad and evil, and the whole world carries some lower energetic coding that we need to shift. But we have to, living in suspicion, fear, doubt, aggression, attack is not going to be the way that we wake up. That's the old way. It's the dark forces fighting each other. And that's what we're seeing in the world a lot of. I'll try to speak to some of the positive things about what's happening. So we want to see the devil everywhere we look, because we're so paranoid about the devil within us that we see the devil everywhere else. Both sides do this. And so the philosopher side, going back to Rome, got so carried away with the physical world that it let me just see how I want to say this. It became addicted to flesh and form, and was worshiping form through more like idols, meaning it got distorted in its understanding of the divine spark, and that spark that permeates matter but that's beyond matter. And so that's why a lot of people were craving that and wanted a container after having all this freedom and all this expansion, no rules, everything goes. As long as it's beautiful, it can fall into the lower carnal desires, and lots of it. Then people were like craving the structure and being monks. Shave your head, put on your sackcloth, and deniers. I mean, this is so crazy. People back then were celebrated if they went out to the desert, ate nothing for the next 40 years, dressed in a sackcloth, denied themselves to clean themselves, denied themselves anything but bread. That was considered godlike. And we see that how that went into the yogis too, because that's an extreme. And then when that happens, we start to abuse the feminine, because the feminine carries beauty and delight and pleasure. And if we're afraid of pleasure, we're going to be afraid of the feminine, because the feminine represents sexuality, and it also represents birth and the mother and all of those things. They began to be pushed out of religion. And then we have a war, because now we have a patriarchal power that pretends it's for women, but it's not really. And then we have a constant one side that's going deeper and deeper to try to fight this side. And it becomes, we'll look at how it's playing out in the world right now. I'm going to see if there's anything specific. Well, we see in our culture just how norms are getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. I can't go much further on that today, because it's not about judgment. But when we just look at how, when things get to the anything goes point, it gets, we have to balance the forces. We have to have a little bit of structure and beauty and form and lust. And we're balancing those two forces. And so that's the goal of all of this. And that is the path of the divine feminine energy of the goddess to the middle path. It's in all traditions, the middle path. And the middle path cannot be stuck in a polarity war. So what happens is, we project our pain into the world. It carries the insanity of perpetual blame and seeks the devil. It projects the holographic overlays onto reality. I'm curious, but I can see these now. I mean, you can see them, and you can see how their spirit, they're like they're shadows, that the second a lot of people think something, it blows up. And then you see all the people on the news talking about it, and then it just disappears. And then we're on to the next thing. And it's insanity. It just goes around and around and around and around. There are people who have reason, and some of these people have been deemed negative. But when you listen, I want to go into this now. Maybe number 3, when you learn to listen to the vibration that people are, there's many good people in the world that are public figures and even politicians that speak with wisdom, and they're being accused of all kinds of things. But if you have your heart awakened, you can listen, and it's up to you to make your own decision. And when people are making sense, and when people have strong love relationships, and when people have a sense of order and a beauty of word, and there's a grace in the auric field, and there's a real contemplation in the eyes, and real emotions are happening, and there's a sense of respect for the outer world, rest assured, that is something to be really honored. And some people that hold some of this energy have been attacked so greatly, it's mind-blowing. So now we all have our shadow, and we all, of course, are taking part in whatever. There are movements that are seeking certain things politically right now. It's very, very true. But some of them are not as evil as they're being pushed to be. We could go on with that. There's a new moon coming in Capricorn. Capricorn rules this whole thing. This new moon, because Saturn and Jupiter have moved out of Capricorn. That new moon is going to be conjunct Pluto. There's going to be a reset of Capricorn with the new moon. It's really big. It's coming up, I think, on the 13th this month in January. Lots of energy available for a fresh start in Capricorn. So use it wisely. All right. So what it wants to see. We see what we want to see, and then we veil the divinity of all beings. We just see a bunch of bodies clashing around, and we pick sides, and we think, oh yeah, those are our people. Oh, those are our people. But we lose the light. We lose the divinity of humanity. All right, so a little bit more on the metaphysics. So 5 is the number of the star of light, the great pentagram, and it represents the power of the heart. So I want to tell you something kind of funny. Those of you who follow my work know I usually have Venus on the I usually have Venus on my wall behind me. Well, Venus came down 3 times in the past 24 hours. So that's all I'm going to say. She was real. I couldn't believe it. And she's never come down, but she came off the wall. And I'm kind of laughing about it. I was like, what are you trying to tell me? Because it's Venus. I have the Botticelli, the Venus, the birth of Venus. And I've stood before her at the Uffizi in Italy. And so I have a deep archetypal connection to her energy. And this is about the heart and creating from a high frequency. And that's what we're truly meant to do right now. So, all right, I guess that's, oh wait. So that connects us to Venus is the divine will. She traces the pentagram in the sky, and she's the divine will. When we activate and heal love within us, she becomes awake within us, and it corresponds to 5D. It corresponds to our heart chakra, our throat chakra. All of this is about how we speak, how we use the power of the word. And as you become more spiritual, if you misspeak, you'll know it right away. Oh God. And the reason is, it's not because you're being punished, but it's because you're carrying a lot of force. When you're carrying heavy magnetic force and you slip with it and you step out of alignment, that force, all of a sudden it burns. That's what initiation brings us into. So when you hold, those who hold great light hold great responsibility to stay true. And so what we see is also a lot of platforms talking about spirituality, but not yet having really awoken that force and that ability to stay in that alignment. And so then a lot of people go back into the fall. All of this is no judgment at all, but it's just something to think about. It's to think, and even, we might bounce around, and sometimes I'm aligned with this, sometimes I'm aligned with that. It's okay. But the greater path of the age of Aquarius is to come into harmony, brotherly and sisterly love. We're aligning our word with the awakened goddess power, and this is completely different process than anything that's being projected right now by the polarity wars that we're seeing. There's a constant battle between desire and control. The only way to heal this is coming from the Goddess Report, is to step into the new way of being. There is a whole new way. This is what my work has been about for years, and I'm doing huge work and doing a very deep dive starting this month in the new education. We're stepping into a completely new educational system as well, completely new. Everything is going to be new. It's amazing. And so that's the only way out of all of this now. All right, when we understand these two energies, we can surrender, and we can receive the impulses of the divine will to completely direct our lives in service of the new archetypal energies. We become a vessel. And our personal relationships, our friendships are so important because they are the mirror of where we're at. So sometimes we do realize that certain things are no longer, they just aren't compatible. That's okay. Nothing wrong with it. And sometimes even we'll move away from something and then come back to it. So just navigate with grace If you need to let go of people, no big deal. It's no big deal. I mean, there's times when I've tuned into certain spiritual teachings, known I needed to set them down and go more into this path. Where it's life is a balancing act, so no fear or judgment around that. However, if something really is getting in your way, make sure that there's not something being messaged to you that you need to integrate, and then just step away. But let it go with kindness. Kindness is the new way, and it's the true divine feminine is warmth and kindness. And sometimes we have to make harsh calls, but that is reserved for when we are in spiritual integrity, and the goddess force itself will let us know when that is. And of course we all slip and we all have our meltdowns and our tantrums, and that's okay. That you can tell if it was a high vibrational tantrum, which pretty much doesn't exist, or one where we're still clearing. That is the goddess report. I want to I want to look down and see if anyone has anything to say. And then let me see, I'll make sure we went through the third tool. I'll review the tools. And at the end, I'll take a moment and I'll talk about something big that I'm doing this month for anyone who might be interested. So I'm just going to take a peek down. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Nice to see you. But, okay. Somebody says, I can see why people are saying what they're saying about this, that they have been hijacked, and that's what we need to the shift to celebrate truth and beauty again. So let's look at the world. Let's look at the world. Let's do that. Let's look at exactly what's happening. So I'm not going to go into the full language but there is so I'm at the epicenter of where this is all happening in the United States, and that is in fact why I didn't do the goddess report on January 1st. There was a huge energy that opened. The portal opened. We stepped into a 5 from a 4 to a 5, and there's other energies around it. And then the contraction came in, and the polarity wars started. You could feel the build up to January 6th in this country, and 5th, that there was a contraction in a dark energy. And if you're sensitive, you could feel it. The ether got completely overtaken. We're sensitive to the ether right now. So I knew what was coming, and I felt the torture and pain of it. And it was hard. Those few days leading up to today, even doing this report, I wanted to sit with it and see what was going to happen. I knew that the dark underbelly and the forces were really, really at an all-time high trying to gather people in. It doesn't mean that everyone's dark. It's different. It means that even good intentions, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's a funny one, but sometimes good intentioned people, if you're not completely awake, get harnessed in and used, because your energy is important. And so to use someone who has energy of the light and to make a misstep is highly, highly, highly valued. That's why, people who are born into this reality that came to do great things are often high priced targets, because they have a lot of light and a lot of love energy. But what's happened is that, so here we are. We've seen what happened yesterday. I watched the whole thing. I watched the news all night. I haven't slept in 3 days, basically. It's been so busy. So where we're at right now, I'm just going to ask from this place. It's multi-leveled. It's a mix of truth and distortion. And so stick with the truth. The truth is that we need change. The truth is that the zodiac has dismantled the patriarchal forces in this past year, and now they're all vying to get back in. The truth is that even though certain people are placeholders, they haven't done all their alchemy. In other words, they haven't cleared their feminine. And so they have past ties to some darkness that has to be cleared. And so the decisions and the judgment is not always clear. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. The use of the word is completely out of alignment. And when we rally people based on wounds, it's never a good thing. If we're rallying them, this is so multi-layered, because we do need to rally people based on healing, but we have to listen carefully to the rhetoric. It matters. The rhetoric matters. The word matters. And appealing to the light and the dark in people at the same time, having a polarity agenda and making it all in the name of an ideology is dangerous. There's an old ancient pattern from the fall of Rome, from the church side, that's very much alive right now. And there's an old feminine wound that's very much alive as well. And so let me just see how we can What is the absolute message right now? Things are going to fall. So the zodiac has its hold. The archons work through the zodiac, and so that if you follow it, you can see what's happening. We're going to have some big energies when Jupiter will square Uranus coming up very shortly, and Saturn will be squaring Uranus. Saturn in Aquarius, remember, it's these two archetypes are in Aquarius. They'll be squaring Uranus in Taurus, and that's going to big energy, big change. Jupiter will go first, and then will come Saturn, and that's going to be a kicker. So you understand that the mental energy right now, that's why you have to understand your mind and how you play a part. Observe. I even observe how I get taken in. Like I watch a lot of different things because I like to see what's in the collective. And it's so, I even notice myself how you go towards the dramatic headlines or the sensationalized drama. We're attracted to that because we want to feel life and we want what's alive. And so we naturally, I caught myself scrolling through and looking for the headlines that really grab with a punch, the sensationals, the clickbait, because it charges up our heart energy and it makes us feel alive. But just be aware of that. It's okay because it's part of this reality, and then to discern it. The person who is in DT, the one who's still in charge in the US, I don't know for how much longer, but is in an archetype of a lot of chaos. And there could be some very drastic things that come in. It's a very intense archetype that he entered into when we crossed into 2021. It's an archetype of undoing, and I say this with reverence for everyone involved. But if it's for the light, it will be known, and if not, it will just completely fall to the ground. And so I'm not sure what's happening exactly right now with that, but we have, there are multiple levels of voices coming in like protests that are happening. And so it's not a purified stream. It's not all one ideology. When I was watching it, I could see the different ideologies coming in. And so it's impossible to say that's one movement. There's all the forces are on. And so that's why we have to stay in the true force, because it's a mixed bag. I'm going to look down. Does anyone have any questions or any comments that you want to bring in that might activate more to be said? We have to transcend duality. It doesn't mean, again, that we're blind to it, but I feel like I need to, there's something else. Just one moment. See the program running in people. Listen and hear the frequency of the words. I see some like news people, and you can just hear them. They're just speaking to hear themselves speak, and they've said it over and over and over. Or see the profound ahas. When someone really has an aha and they speak truth, it's beautiful. And then praise that, because we're going to be seeing more of that. More and more people are activated to wake up, and there's going to have to be a forgiveness period. What's coming is more of the same. For the whole next year, it's going to be a lot of rapid movements. Now, one of the biggest things that we are not seeing talked about is the biggest elephant in the room, and that has to do with technology. Nobody really talks about that in politics, and there's a reason for that. So the darker agenda is working through that very powerfully. It doesn't mean that we have to throw out all technology, but that's what you want to keep your eye on. That is, some of it's intentional, and much of it is subconscious. Much of what's happening is just operating through the subconscious mind, the feminine principle. People that we may place the evil sign on their forehead or the scarlet letter aren't necessarily conscious of being used. So there are some people that are, and they're trying to gather the forces, but not everyone is aware that they may be acting. And so we have to have forgiveness, because we've all done that. All right. I'm ready for the new too. 5G is bad news. Well, I can feel it. I can feel it for sure. And it's okay. Perfect. Thank you for saying that. Technology is Mercury. Think of Mercury retrograde. It rules technology. So this year, 2021 is a 5. It's the number of Mercury. And this year could be like one long Mercury retrograde if you're in the shadows, meaning everything could be grindy, wearing on the mind, miscommunication, mishaps, delays, things not being right. I mean, it could be constant because when Mercury goes retrograde, it has a huge effect on this dual instrument we have. Um, Technology as well is going for the mind. I mean, that's its target. That's the high price target, to get the mind so you can access the feminine energy. And it's definitely coming in. That's coming in, but we are. You don't have to fear it. No fear. No fear. Don't fear, whether you're worried about, there's a lot of, I know what I want to say, even with the health crisis and, the medical solutions and all of these things. Pray, be aligned, ask that you are only taken to what you can handle and what would not damage your vehicle, and you will be okay. We are much more stronger than we think. We don't have to go into complete fear over technology or over something we might fear that's going to be done to us or injected to us. We don't have to fear it. Just be sensible. Collectively, speak what you feel, and don't. But we have to walk with balance right now. A lot of the sophistication is understanding how to balance the forces and not attack a force that's going to take you out immediately. When we fight the dark, we have to understand that we're on the playing field of the dark. So we have to have grace and truth and power within our own consciousness before we swing our sword. Otherwise, it's going to come right back to us. Technology is something to watch. And in fact, I saw, if you know who Simon Sinek is, a friend of mine posted a whole like a collage of his video collage of him talking about the dangers of technology with children and mental health. It's huge. This year, mental health, by our relationship, our toxic relationship with technology, our addiction to technology, and our handing over our own quiet space is going to be known, because as things amp up, people aren't going to be able to take it. It's going to be too much on the nervous system. If you can't balance it, it's going to seem like too much. That's where we want to really start to make sure we have real time with real people who we love, and are not just clung. And I recommend looking up Simon Sinek and looking at what he has to say. He has so many powerful points about children, about the millennials he works with and how he sees them. They can't put their phone down. It's definitely a problem. This is not something that's going away. It's damaging to the heart. And of course, walking in nature. I heard someone make a really funny joke saying, I'm sick of hearing to go inward and walk in nature. It's like the cliche, but it's the truth. When you go into nature, you breathe it. You breathe the higher light, and it fans your heart. When you walk, it fans your breath. Breath is very big. We need to be able to breathe the outdoors, celebrate the divine in nature. So does anybody have any specific question? Good intention behind the AI for sure. We're meant to have, where technology isn't going away. There might be a collapse of it for a while, because everything, if everything goes south, we may lose it for a while, but technology is part of our creation, and it's going to lead us into the use of what I call the inner technology of the goddess, which I'm working with in what's coming up. So I'm going to take a moment, then I'm going to, for those who are interested, talk a little bit about what I'm working with this month. I have a program, a really deep dive educational program starting January 19th. I'll talk about it for a moment, but I just want to make sure if there's anything big that anyone wants to say. Absolutely. It's very simple. It's very simple. Let's take a moment and do I am, and send I am out to all the, it's so funny to not see Venus behind me, but she spoke. She definitely spoke. Let's do I am in the 7 directions with Diamond Mudra. Just taking a deep breath in and exhale. Birth the light. Connect to your inner teacher. Once you activate your inner voice, that is salvation. That's salvation. Your inner voice the truth of intuition, the soul energy. So just repeating after me, seeing the light birthed through your Diamond Mudra into your field, activating the Star of David, which is just a very powerful glyph that represents the inner marriage and the cosmic marriage of spirit and matter, of the macrocosm with the microcosm, mind and heart. And repeating after me, I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am unto me. Please take a deep breath in, breathe in all the way, and then just envision yourself walking forward with some healing and helping to play your part in whatever way you're meant to, trusting, having faith and belief and knowing in your God self. And we'll seal it with I am, I know, I am, I know, I am. Three I ams represent the Trinity and our knowledge of their divine union. And the Trinity is a very powerful archetype in this time. And Trinity represents balancing the forces too, with the third point. Um, so, for those of you, first, namaste to everyone who showed up. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I have coming. For those of you who are interested, I have huge body of work, and I'm teaching a really deep dive 3-month mentorship in January 19th it begins. It goes for 3 months, and it's really based on the platform of the divine feminine wisdom. And this is a profound body of work. It's very layered. It's not just a simple workshop or study. Now, the truth is simple, and we really all we need is our breath and love. However, there is an educational process, and if you're really interested in it and you know it's you, we're entering a new time, all new work, all new ways of creating reality and all new ways of expressing ourselves, and this work speaks to that. And I'm calling it the Trinity codes. It's Light Body Woman. This is a woman's mentorship, and it's the divine feminine energy activation, and I'm calling it the Trinity codes because it's about the work, the deep work in spiritual, in healing sexuality. And if you're interested in some of the things going on the planet and some of the things being said, we speak to that very profoundly, and we speak to how sexuality is being upgraded, and we go into that deeply and deeply into love relationships. And it's very profound, and it's one of the true authentic streams on the planet. And I believe that because I've lived it. I know it to be. And I've also done the alchemy to carry that. And so we'll be working with Light Body Tantra. Light Body Yoga is so special. It's the technology of the goddess, and we work with the 7 portals of light. This will be specifically for the divine feminine wisdom teachings. And Light Body Woman is an amazing, it's the divine feminine mysteries for womankind and feminine consciousness. And I'll put the link in the description box. If you're interested in applying, it will be down below the video. I want to talk a little bit about gender just for a moment, because I do happen to work at least 50% of my time is working with women. And it's because my contract was to move through reality in a female vehicle and understand what happened with both man and woman. And so because of my alchemical process and what I specifically went through in this lifetime, and probably many others, I gained access to knowledge that pertained to healing that part of the consciousness. So we have a masculine and feminine consciousness, and then everything in between. Now, some men are much more feminine than some women, and some women are much more powerful and strong than men, and have much more alpha. And that is to be honored. And then we have all the different gender issues that are coming up right now because of what's happening on the planet. People are not necessarily feeling 100% aligned with their own container. And needing to express that through their consciousness, which is amazing and beautiful. So there's a place for all of this, and I even have had a lot of people come into my work that are not in a female container, but that identify more, that are carrying more feminine energy, and it's a beautiful thing, and so we embrace this as well. I do work specifically, though, with some of the, based on our reproduction and the reproductive co-creation process, and the emotional body of the planet, and how women have a great, great role in healing that. And so that's why I'm working with the woman, even though of the divine feminine. And it's important to say this now because the mind can go into polarity and get upset by it. But even though we all carry that energy, there is specific healing to begin to birth the next level of humans on this planet, because we birth humans through the joining of those polarities. And so that's why both are healing. And maybe I'll talk more about gender. It's very powerful to talk about that right now. We're healing it, and we all contain both. We all contain, just like we all contain shadow and light within us. And so very sacred times that we're living in. I bow to all of you. Send love out onto this planet. May things heal, even though we probably have a lot more to go to. Sending love to all those in power, all those politicians, all those people on the news, all those people who are actively taking part in what they truly believe in. Sending love and humility out to everyone, that we all wake up in this 2021. So I bow to you, and I will see you next time. Namaste. Thank you so much to everyone who is here today. Thank you.